Right. Okay, we're all ready to go. Yep. Right. If we start with item 2 then, because item 1, apologies for absence, will be taken on item 3. Anybody got any declarations of interest before we start the meeting?
Yeah, Chair, please. Councillor Hodgins here. Yeah, I'll just declare that our firm, on occasions, provide transport services to one of your procured suppliers. Okay.
That's great. Thanks for that, Wayne.
Thank you.
I got something as well regarding new Innes mentioned again in the agenda, so I'd just like to put that regarding the new builds and everything. Anybody else have got anything they would like to declare? No. If you do think of anything going along, then please state it to anybody, and they will record it. So thanks for that. Item 3, the chairperson's announcement. I haven't got any that I'm aware of. Sarah, did you want to come in now to do the...
Okay, thank you, Chair. So I'll do the roll call now. Councillor Colbrand. I can't see Councillor Colbrand online. Councillor Spencer. Councillor Spencer, can you...
Hello?
Hello, Councillor Spencer. Thank you. I can see you now. Much appreciated. Councillor Drake.
Present.
Morning. Councillor Ibrahim. I can't see Councillor Ibrahim online. Councillor Evans.
Yep.
Morning. Councillor Hodgins.
Yes, present.
Thank you. Councillor Hussey.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Morgans.
Present.
Good morning. Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Present.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. And Councillor White. I can see you, Councillor White. Thank you very much. Thank you, members. That's roll call.
All right. If we move on to item 4, then to receive the minutes, the Finance Audit and Performance Management meeting held on Monday, 26th of July, 2021, and that's on page 3. So if we go through page by page, and anybody like to bring anything up after we've gone through, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, and page 7. Did anybody want to raise anything? Did I see, Val, you wanted to come in?
Oh, yes, Jim. I did ask you a question, and I could well have had a response to how many dogs have we got, please? Where were they located? And I've probably had a response and I've forgotten, but I apologise if so, gents. So how many actual rescue dogs do we have? That was on page 4. Sorry.
Yeah, page 4, yeah.
Thank you, Jim.
Our rescue dogs sit with National Resilience, Councillor. So whilst they're an all Wales asset.
Right.
I believe there are two rescue dogs, but they sit within the National Resilience Forum and can be called on by the 3 Welsh services then.
Right. So I know it's a small issue. Where are they actually accommodated?
They sit with a handler who was a Mid and West service officer. If you recall, we did at one time have fire investigation dogs situated within our service area, but unfortunately, a decision was made some time ago that we would utilise sort of equipment. So as technology advanced, we were able to utilise equipment to sniff out accelerants almost. So as the dogs retired, then we phased out those dogs, and they still sit with their handler Matt Jones, who was the previous handler down in Monmouth now. So they live with Matt and enjoy their retirement. But these are rescue dogs now, as opposed to fire investigation dogs, and they sit with National Resilience. So I believe there are 2 dogs, and they sit with a Mid and West officer, and they're on for us.
Right. Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you.
Yeah,
Great.
thanks for that, Val. Excellent. Any other questions regarding the minutes? No?
I'd like to move them, Chair.
Yeah, anybody second that?
I'll second them.
Thanks for that. Right then, if we move on to item 5, it's a revenue monitoring report 2021 to 2022, page 9. I think that's Lisa leading on that.
It is, Chair. Yes, good morning to everybody. Okay, so this is about the revenue monitoring budget, which is the budget we use to run the service for the year. There's a few appendices attached to this report, which is intended to give members an update from budget setting to the current position, which was run the 9th of August. So it's just over a quarterly update for you all. So the budget was set to 77,530,000. Little change this year, we now including grant expenditure and income. So we've got £2 million worth of grant expenditure and grant income worked into Appendix 1. And our projected spend then is 78,613,000, which is higher than the budget set because it includes grant initiatives. Even though the budget or the fire levy and the grant income brings us up to 79,000, we've got an underspend projected overall of £1 million for this year. That's up until the 31st of March. Appendix 2 presents the movement on reserves. So members are reminded that at the end of the year, any surplus or deficit on the revenue budget affects the position of these reserves. They're not all revenue, some are capital, and you'll probably notice on Appendix 2 that we are utilising some capital receipts to fund our capital investment this year. You can also see there's a net increase of 799,000. Most of that is due to the projected revenue surplus of £1 million. And then Appendix 3 and 4, they're grant related. So Appendix 3 gives a lot of detail on grant updates. A nice table in Appendix 4 in terms of the grant position. You'll probably notice that we're £133,000 overspent, and then the last appendix then is relates to grants for capital. So that £1 million underspend has arisen from a few areas. The majority of it, 865, relates to employee budgets. So 740 is driven by vacancies. Members will see that there are establishment figures there, and we'll probably note that the biggest difference is in RDS in terms of what our current strength is and what we budgeted for. And I make that we were 58 people under, albeit that will go up and down throughout the year. The underspend is largely driven by vacancies on the establishment. There's a small underspend on ill health pensions. That's really difficult to get on the money each year because it depends what the independent medical examiner, what conclusions they come to for each of our firefighters on ill health. And also we've got some underspend then, 66,000 travel and subsistence, and this is the effect or the continuing effect of COVID-19. We're not travelling around as much as we used to. We're not incurring mileage costs, the subsistence costs that go with the mileage, and also we're not staying overnight. So this includes accommodation as well. We're doing more this type of thing, you know, Starleaf, Teams meetings, that sort of thing. So more work done virtually, and that's resulted in that underspend. And this will be used, that underspend in travel subsistence will be used later on to fund some PP increases, and I'll come to that in due course. The next area of underspend is training costs. This underspend relates to courses, so it's courses, seminars and conferences. And then we move on to the larger area of supplies and services of 154,000. There's a small overspend on fire safety equipment, which happens every year. We always overspend on the grant. I think at the moment, in terms of home fire safety equipment, that's an equal split across Wales.
It is. It is. Yeah, it's an equal split. It's something that I always fight for, to have the lion's share, to be honest, in South Wales, because we do the lion's share of the risk reduction activity, the numbers that we visit, shall we say. But unfortunately, it's an even split through Welsh Government at the moment. Hence the reason that we come to yourselves as members to offset an overspend along our grant each and every year. I think the overspend was smaller this time around.
It's 80 at the moment. The overspend is 80,000. It's a little bit frustrating because usually that overspend, we have to report it as an overspend at the moment. By the time the year end comes, the other two services generally underspend, and then they underspends fund our overspend, if that makes any sense. Yeah?
Yeah.
So we have to report it as is at the moment, but it would be useful if the grant was allocated on trends, I guess. It would more
and we would get the lion's share.
Yeah, it would more realistically reflect how we spend our money across Wales. Other equipment costs have gone up. Support and maintenance charges have also gone up. There's quite a bit of uncertainty around the big project that we've got for ICT this year, which is Microsoft 365. We've got budget in there and we've got costs in there, but we are just watching and seeing how that project develops. It's quite a complex project for us. And the increase on PPE, just to confirm with members that Welsh Government have said they will continue to fund any additional spend on COVID-19 for the first 6 months of this financial year. I haven't heard any different for the following 6 months, but the way they do it is we look at all our COVID spend in terms of PPE, ICT requirements. We had a lot of that initially, cleaning, that sort of thing. And what they've asked us to do is where we've got underspends in areas such as travel, accommodation, subsistence, instead of making a claim for the extra PPE, using the underspend to offset that, so it's fair, if that makes sense. So that's why we've earmarked the travel subsistence underspend to cover the additional PPE. And of course a small underspend then on policy premiums offsetting that. Another area of underspend is capital costs. That's directly linked to our capital investment. If we are going to, the budget was set on our aspirations for capital for the year. We now know through the first monitoring report and meetings with budget holders that we're not going to spend our allocation. We're going to spend less. So as a result, then capital costs, which are things like interest, statutory charges on borrowing like MRP, they then reduce, and this is what is making up this 140,000 underspend. We've got additional income there, and this is largely as a result of an increase in the SCAPE award, which we didn't know when we set the budget, so that's a good news story for us all. So there's a quick flick through the appendix, members, at the back there. You will see the table which shows the £1 million underspend on a revenue budget, overleaf revenue reserves, the narrative on grants, the table on grants showing the 133,000 overspend, and then overleaf the capital grants position. Are there any questions?
Anybody got any questions, Lisa?
Chair, can I just ask, sir, Chair, is Councillor Hodgins it is?
Yeah, by all means, yeah, wait.
Obviously, she made the statement the Welsh Government have asked us to supply or to utilise any spare funding that we have to cover our own PPE costs. I find that strange because I thought we were going to put that into reserves for future training and conferences, etc. It seems so. Is that a statement that they've issued to say that any fire authority, then they must use any surplus cash they got to fund their own PPE requirements.
No, Councillor Hodgins, it's not surplus, any surplus.
No.
It's where we've saved money because of,
yes.
So, because we've saved money on not travelling, the subsistence are attached to it, and not spending on accommodation, all those savings are directly related to COVID. They're asking that any additional COVID costs are covered by those savings. So it's not underspends in general.
No, I say underspends was the wrong terminology, but I'm just saying now, they say, well, because we haven't used our normal budget that we set aside for travel and conferences, etc., they now expect us to utilise it to pay for our own PPE, and that's what they're saying, isn't it?
That's right, yeah. Those are under the terms of the grant that have been put to us by Welsh Government. The grant award has been in place since the summer last year, and that has been an evolving picture. I guess they think that whilst they are happy to fund us for additional strain costs, they're not happy for us to gain from additional underspends. So, there's a finite amount of funding here, so they're taking a very prudent view of things, I think.
Okay. So, which I understand the rationale there. So really then, are you saying there's also the money that we normally set aside in a general budget setting for courses and conferences, that will just, where will that go now? You mentioned the word grant, didn't you? They've given us a grant. We get grants, yeah. So we are claiming grant for COVID. Yes.
It's diminished really, the COVID grant. 3,500 so far for COVID this year, because we don't know what we're going to spend on it. We don't know the spending changes with the restrictions, whether we've still got them or not. What infection rates are like, outbreaks on station, things like that. They tend to be quite volatile, and they will drive like an increase in cleaning costs and things like that. So we don't budget for COVID. They are unbudgeted costs. We can claim some, but we are limited to how much we are saving on COVID-related expenditure elsewhere.
Of course, I know, but what I just hope it isn't a start of something. They say, they be looking at people's like audited accounts, say, hang on, you've got spare money in this spot, spare money in that pot, and expect us to utilise all our own good practice in-house where we have had coming on budget or even underspend. It seems the start of something which perhaps I'm reading too much into it, but it's something I will keep eyeing on with the local authority now as well, because we've got underspends or surpluses. Okay,
but local authorities will be doing exactly the same thing. The same applies to everybody. They'll be offsetting any savings as a result of reduction in activity for COVID. They follow the same guidance in terms of this hardship grant.
Okay, well, thanks for your comprehensive answer. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
I believe Councillor White and then Councillor Colbrand were indicating.
Regards to COVID, it's just really more of a statement more than anything. Did I catch you right and said the Welsh Government committed to 6 months of this year? But yes. I don't know whether is there anything we can do as a fire authority to write to the Minister and just to say, look, you're saying on TV, we're going in for a hard winter. Only last Friday, Mark Drayford was saying, things are going to be tough this year. Over winter. Is there anything as a fire authority that we can do to write a letter to advocate the cost, or we can do to support you in any way?
Councillor White, we've got somebody designated in the finance team that daily liaises with Welsh Government. It could be that they extend it. They haven't said they're not going to. It's just that we've had the first 6 months a nod given to us for definite, so that could extend. Bearing in mind, our spend on COVID has waned considerably. It's not at the level that it was last year. There would have been a massive financial burden on the authority. The spend, it's not a concern at this moment in time. If we had another peak and another lockdown and all those other things happened again, it would be a different story. But this point in time, it's not an area of concern. But we will continue to liaise with Welsh Government on the continuance of funding.
All right, cheers. Thank you.
If I can come in by there as well, Councillor White, just for information, the the chair of the fire authority and the chief fire officer have regular meetings with the deputy minister who's responsible for fire. So they do, use every opportunity to get those messages across. And the deputy minister, there was an actual visit to the headquarters site week before last. So again, it's any opportunity to communicate, as much of the pressure that we're under as a service. We certainly use those opportunities when there are face-to-face meetings with the minister.
All right, cheers. Thank you, Gary. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Colbrine, did you want to come in?
Yeah, sorry, no, I wasn't indicating. I put in the chat that apologies for being late. I had connection problems, but I may have been waving my coffee cup around, which may have been me wanting to speak, but I didn't.
Okay. Have you got any declarations of interest before we go any further, Malcolm?
No declarations.
Okay, you all right, Sarah? Yeah.
Noted.
The questions I got, Lisa, is on the training costs.
Yeah.
I know we got an underspend of 23,000 or whatever. For the purchase of training equipment, with everything going up dramatically, will that impact on the underspend going forward? And then on the supplies and services,
yes,
because we've done things differently, has that altered why we've overspent in certain areas?
Yeah, yes to both, simply. With the training costs, training's budget is made up of training costs and other equipment. They've got a few headings within the same budget. So they've re-looked at the budget and its requirements for this year, decided they don't have to deliver so many courses, and have been able to, thankfully, redirect budget to pay for the additional, fuel really, to run CFBT. Now we know those costs are climbing. At this moment in time, it's not a concern, but if they do continue to climb more than we projected, it will of course impact on the final year-end position. So if those costs go way above what we have there already, the underspend will reduce. So it's a good job we've got the underspend that we've got to be able to accommodate for those little hikes.
The only reason I've asked is that the costs have climbed really, really steeply on a lot of stuff.
Yes.
So the reason I asked, it would impact on the financial parts of it. That's the reason I asked.
Yes. I think at the moment they've put in the costs that they've currently got and projected that towards the end of the financial year. Because we just don't know what it's going to increase to.
No.
It would be arbitrary to put anything other than what we've got at the minute in.
Yeah.
But as you know,
where we are, that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. We will be coming back and updating members then throughout the year, so you'll have the updates.
Brilliant. Anybody got any other questions for Lisa regarding that?
Can I ask, Chairman?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Somebody tell me, which button should I actually be pushing to say I would like to speak?
Unfortunately, Councillor, we don't have a hands up button on Starleaf. So if you can just turn your camera on and then wave at me, I'll try not to set it up with a coffee cup in future.
Okay, thank you very much. No, can I just... I like the idea of sort of somebody tripping into our firehouse with kindling. Is it little bundles of twigs? But I don't know. Just me reading the report, and it's very interesting. Thank you. Under point 4, the final total you'd come up there with the evaluation and conclusions was 78.6 in your thing, and I got it to 79.6. I think it's just a little typo, is it? That was 4.1 on your main report. That one.
That's 78.6. It takes back to the last but 2 column on the table. It's not a typo, no.
Ah, right. So I'm reading things wrong at that time.
Typo.
Right. Okay, that's one we haven't got.
I think I know where you're going with that, Councillor Smith. If you add together the fire levy and the grants, it does come back to 79,000 odd.
Yeah.
But what we're doing is we're taking that figure and we're pitting our projected spend against it, net spend.
Right.
And the actual amount that we've got in terms of funding is 79, but our actual spend is 78. And that's where the £1 million underspend comes from. So
Okay.
you're quite picking that up.
Thank you. It just worried me. I couldn't understand why. And the other little point that intrigued me on page 21 in the appendix 3 was the funding for apprentices who are going to firefighter skills at Cardiff Gate. They attend the Vale and Cardiff College to learn basic skills to enhance their duty as a firefighter. Funding is received directly from the college to reimburse the salary costs of the recruits whilst attending the course. And all I'd written at the bottom was pay Peter to pay Paul, because talk about money going round in circles. Or am I just up the wall again, please?
I think with some of these grants, we've got to meet certain conditions before we can access them. So I think you've got to be doing the work first before you can apply for the grant and get it. So it's not a given. But I don't know where. Go on, yeah.
This is to do with the we call a cost from the apprenticeship levy. So as a service, they consider amount, I think, around the quarter.
That's all right. That's fine.
Yeah. So the firefighters now, the whole-time firefighters start as apprentices, and then we reclaim the money through our training provider, which is Cardiff College, for the time that they spend on certain aspects of their initial training. They can't do the technical aspects and the operational aspects. We still do that. But we reclaim that money somewhat, and I would believe that's been reported to you previously. We reclaim that apprenticeship levy through Cardiff and Vale.
It's just a portion of it rather than the full cost.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'd forgotten the apprenticeship levy. Thank you very much, Chairman. Fine, thank you.
Well, yeah. Everybody happy? Any other questions for Lisa regarding that? Well, if not, the recommendations are that the Finance Audit and Performance Management Committee note and agree to the report content.
Okay, so I'll take a roll call from members to vote on this item. Councillor Colbrand, I'm not sure if you're eligible to vote for this one because I'm not sure if you joined at the beginning.
No, I didn't. I missed the start of the report, so I'll abstain on this.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Councillor Spencer.
Agree.
Thank you. Councillor Drake.
Agreed.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
Agreed.
Thank you. Councillor Hodgins.
Agreed.
Thank you. Councillor Hussey.
Agreed.
Thank you. Councillor Morgans.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Councillor Smith.
Agree.
And Councillor White.
Agree.
Thank you. That was unanimous, Chair.
Yeah, thanks everybody. We'll now move on to item 6, which is Capital Monitoring Report 2021-22. That's on page 25. And I think that's Lisa again.
Yeah, it's me again. Sorry. Okay, so this is an update on the capital outturn position and capital budget for the year. It's the first one we've had since we set the capital budget. We slipped forward 3.6 million of unspent budget from last year to continue schemes and just secure the funding going forward into 21-22. We've also got a £4.7 million budget set for the year. So altogether, we've got 8.2 million of budget that we can use to spend on capital investment. Like I said, 8.2 million or 8.3 million of budget. We've spent 7.7 million. We've got some underspends there, and we've got a carry forward of 1.8 million then into next year. Capital being a little bit different from revenue, and that's why we've got this issue of slippage. Capital schemes tend to run longer and tend to sort of straddle financial year end. So it's quite right that we should slip unspent budget forward to complete lots of these big projects that we've got going on. So we've got in Appendix 1 a breakdown of all the individual capital schemes that make up the summary figures I just gave you. And we've got some key headings there of property, vehicles, equipment and ICT. There are some changes since we set the budget, and I'll just go through and provide an update for you on those now. So we've got an overspend for Pontypridd project. As members will be aware, we envisaged this towards the end of the financial year. Internal works are complete. External works are ongoing. Signage is complete. I've been told by the property manager this week that the footings will be poured by the end of this week. The footings will be done, and for the tower, and it'll take a further 10 weeks to complete that tower. We've got a new steelwork tower coming to Pontypridd, and I think property are envisaging using that as a template to potentially roll out to other stations if it's successful. So normally tower works are 16 weeks. We've already undergone a few weeks of that. So within about 10 weeks, we are hoping that Pontypridd will be complete, albeit with a £212,000 overspend. Tonopandi, update on that. There's been overspend on Tonopandi. Some unbudgeted works have occurred there. What's driving the 70,000 is Western Power action some additional work for us. That did drive costs up. It's much like COVID. You've got people on site longer. That is management fees just cost more. And also we replaced the bay flooring in Tonopandi. Originally in the budget, we had monies in for a repair job. When we went out to have a look at it, it was more than a repair job. The floor just needed to be replaced. And between those two things, they've driven that £70,000 increase. It looks like an overspend with church for the use of Centre of Excellence or vehicle housing. Both. Some are saying shed, but I prefer Centre of Excellence, yes. So that looks like an overspend on Appendix 1 for Whitchurch USAR, albeit members should note that that overspend, whilst unbudgeted, is wholly funded by Welsh Government grants. Penarth, there's an update there in terms of that's been delayed, and we'll come back to that at a later point. And the same with Monmouth when things are more certain. I've been told that we are still press ahead in terms of the process to purchase the land at New Inn. The property manager thinks that may take place before Christmas, although it may not. Geraint, do you want to provide an update on that? We are waiting for something from the vendors.
Yeah, they'll take on that. Yeah, we've had all site investigations done now, and we've done a lot more detailed investigations in terms of drilling on the site to find the ground conditions were suitable. All the checks have come back satisfactory, so the report's complete to say that there's nothing untoward on the site. Contamination on the site was low. They have made some recommendations just on the type of foundation that we need, depending on where we actually were to locate the fire station, should we proceed with the site. So everything's looking good. We now sort of at the stage where we can progress with our legal department then in terms of drawing up a heads of terms agreement, and we're working that up with our agents as well, just ready to progress and make a formal offer then to the owners of the site. And like with any sort of land transaction, it's not going to happen overnight, so it'll take probably another month or two to work through all the negotiations. But we are in a position to make that formal offer now, so we will be proceeding. And obviously we've had the approval previously through the Fire Authority to make that initial offer.
I'll have to declare an interest now we discussed that. because it's my home authority, and I sit on the planning. So yeah.
Okay, so moving on, we've got the vehicle replacement programme. We're overspending on this section of our capital plan this year by 696,000, which is the highest I've ever known it. Costs are going up, as we just discussed. That's driven primarily by two areas. The prime movers, £400,000 overspend there, and also rescue tenders. There's some smaller bits on the truck upgrade and water ladders, but those are the two areas driving that significant overspend. Operational equipment, there's a small overspend on breathing apparatus as written, and an update I've had this morning on the structural kit is that it's 95% complete. We're having a meeting next week with a supplier. There are some issues with delivering the remaining elements of the kit, mainly because it's made in Indonesia. But also when it is made, I can see that we are going to have an issue transporting that kit over to us, because as everybody knows, there's a shortage now on delivery drivers and whatnot. So I don't think that's going to be completed really soon, although we'll have an update next week, and I'll keep members updated in the next report after that. So I don't think it's so much about when the invoices are received, it's more about when the kit is received and just making sure that we've got a successful completion of the contract there. In terms of ICT equipment, that is, there's very little change there, with only the patient management system being pushed forward into 22-23. That's been delayed majorly because of COVID. So the guys will be able to pick that project up and develop it next year. Any questions?
Any questions, Lisa? Well, you're all gone quiet. I got one. I agree with the rescue tenders with the prices going up, but if you look, we required specific winch kit, which is additional cost. So in that cost, really, we've asked for specific equipment, which is all right. It's slightly dearer, but the service needs it. Then I'm all for it myself. But
yeah,
I did notice that. But I mean, as I said to you previously, everything equipment-wise, the prices have astronomically gone up. You know, and that's just something we got to face. So I think there's nothing we can do with that. It's out of our own control, really.
Yeah, I think as you pointed out, that increase or that overspend 200,000 is a general increase, but it's also because we've spec'd more than we originally thought. The costs have increased as a result of that as well, and it is for 3 vehicles. We're not just talking about the 1 year.
But also, the service is prudent, and they kept an older vehicle rather than replacing it with a newer vehicle. So yeah, there is prudence in our financial management of that. So yeah. Any other questions that anybody has before we go to the recommendation? No, we're all quiet this morning.
No.
Val, did you want to come in?
Only a comment to say that I wish I could see it's not our fault, obviously, it's the other authorities getting together, the police and WAS, that the Monmouth scheme doesn't seem able to proceed as one would like to see it. But I'm a bit biased, the Monmouth member, perhaps. Thanks.
Yeah, that's right, Val. You know, sometimes we're determined on waiting in collaboration for others. So, you know.
Yeah, well, this has been going on for so many years. It's incredible.
You know.
Thanks.
And we are trying, but, you know.
Oh, no, I don't think it's our fault at all. The site is there, the location is good, and it seems sensible. You just think, gosh. Thanks, Chairman.
Yeah. Thank you, Val. So if there's no other questions, if I go to the recommendation, then that members note the budget and progress of capital schemes, approve alteration identified in Appendix 1 and associated movements in funding. Are we all happy with that?
Thank you, Chair. I'll just take a very quick roll call for this vote. Councillor Colbrand?
Yes, in favour.
Thank you. Councillor Spencer?
Agreed.
Thank you. Councillor Drake?
Agreed.
Thank you. Councillor Evans?
In favour.
Thank you. Councillor Hodgins?
Agreed.
Thank you. Councillor Hussey?
Agreed.
Thank you. Councillor Morgans?
Approved, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Smith?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. And Councillor White?
Agreed.
Thank you. That's unanimous, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thanks, everyone. If we move next on to item 7, which is a medium-term financing strategy 2021 to 22, and then it's to 2026 to 2027, and that's on page 33, and that is Garance, I think.
It's mine, Chair, I think.
Yeah,
Chris.
Well,
I'm not quite sure how you got that.
Not on my sheet, it isn't. That's a typo. All right.
Maybe Garrett's trying to steal it from me. I don't know. Chair, this report is looking at the medium-term financial strategy for the next sort of 5-6 years. It also includes some information building towards next year's budget as the first year of that strategy. As I take members through, I will need to update a couple of things in this report, because since the report has been produced, a couple of announcements have been made, things have been changed, which do affect it. So I will feed that in due course. Sort of good planning is that every organisation has a medium-term financial strategy, looking at the sort of assumptions and planning and strategy that we're going to adopt in terms of developing our budget over the next 5 years, and particularly the challenges that may result from those figures. In developing the plan, we're struggling because there are no real forward indicators from any central government, either in Westminster or in Welsh Government, about what likely settlements are going to look like for the public sector. And I indicated that within the body of the report. There is one thing that's changed on that. Recent discussions that I've been involved in with Welsh Government in a slightly different life of mine have indicated that the Minister wants to give indicative settlements to local authorities for 3 years in the coming round of settlements. So we might start to see some indicative figures coming out for local government for next year and the 2 years after. How much detail will be in that, I'm not absolutely sure, but it might give us a clue as to the direction of travel for Welsh Government settlements, particularly for the 22 councils in Wales, which is obviously where we get our resources from. So that's one of the things that has changed since the report was constructed. The last couple of years have seen increases in support for local government. Whether that continues, of course, depends on Welsh Government's budget strategy for next year, whether or not they get sufficient money or more money from Westminster, and whether or not they choose to divert that resource to the NHS or to local councils or to social care, etc., all of which are kind of hot topics at the moment in terms of central government funding. So to that extent, we are struggling a little bit to still know what is happening. In terms of the figures in the report, I'm just going to jump around a bit in this report, Chair. So I'm going to jump down to the table on page 37 of your agenda, which are the headlines from the medium-term financial plan. There has been one other quite significant change in these numbers since the report was produced, and that was the recent announcements the government in Westminster came out with around funding social care and kind of old age issues. And as members will no doubt be aware, the government announced that they were going to increase national insurance contributions for individuals to actually help fund social care going forward. Of course, that comes with an employer cost as well. The indications being that they're going to add 1% to national insurance rates for employers. And as an employer, we will, of course, see an increase in costs as well. Now, we weren't aware of that information when the report was produced. So we've had to do revised estimates on the report in terms of going forward. We estimate it's going to cost us about £300,000 a year at the moment. It is only an estimate. We haven't seen sort of specific figures yet. And therefore, the percentage increases that are shown in the table there in paragraph 4.1 will change. So if members want to make a note, the indicative figure for next year, 2.44%, looks like it'll probably be something like 2.84% actually. Obviously, future years, the percentage increases stay largely the same because they're building on the previous year's budget. So it's not an increase over and above that every year. Once it's built into the base budget, then it's in there, sort of thing. So that represents another change in the figures on the report. Those are the only two real key changes. In terms of building up the base budget for next year, 75% of our spend is employee related in some form or shape. Either pay, pensions, associated ill health pensions, that type of thing, together with a number of other heads that essentially are driven by employee assumptions. And we've included within the medium-term financial plan an assessment of 1.5% pay inflation across the period. 1.5% is kind of an average trend, really, in terms of pay. What we don't know is whether anything left field will come in to affect that, of course. So, for instance, if a discussion were to be taking place around the role of firefighters or anything like that, then clearly there would be a potential for that figure to substantially change. But at the moment, we've included a base assumption of 1.5%. Now, it gets slightly confusing in terms of the employee budget here. And I'll just take members through this in case anyone's got it in their mind from last year's budget setting. We did include assumed pay awards when we set the budget for this financial year, this time back in February. And if you remember, we didn't know what pay awards were going to be, and there was an indication they might be substantially higher than that which was first thought. We're now starting to see the pay awards being settled, and they are coming in slightly lower than we'd assumed. And what the Fire Authority decided was that if pay awards for the current year came in lower than estimate, we would actually make a refund to local authorities to reduce the base budget. It looks like that refund will be due, and it could be of the order of £500,000. Still not finalised all the pay awards yet, so it's still an unknown to some degree. But what I would say is these figures that you're looking at in this report assume that refund is made. So it assumes that we will reduce the base budget back down to the actual level of the pay awards agreed for the current financial year. And then we'll be building from there. So just to reassure members, that assumption is built into these figures. In terms of other changes for the employee budget, we've built in an assumption about increasing pension costs. You'll be aware that the legal cases are still ongoing around the equalities around tapering arrangements within the firefighter scheme. Those are still not resolved. We've built in some assumptions around increased costs as a result of those cases going forward. We've built in the effects of job evaluation, which you approved in a previous meeting. And also some of the discussion we were having earlier about training. There are assumptions built in around some of the increased training requirements within the budget, flowing from some changes which we're anticipating over the next few years. In terms of the premises budget, as usual, there are some costs that go up. Business rates is one of them. We're assuming a regular increase in business rates, but we're also looking closely at a revaluation which is due to come through the system. There was a revaluation due, but it was deferred by Welsh Government, and we're assuming that our rates costs might go up by anything up to 20% in the coming financial years. So we're sort of aware of that and are building that in as a worst case scenario at the moment for these figures. The other one we are looking at as well There is a project going on nationally around the emergency services network, which is to replace the emergency services communication network across the UK. Welsh Government currently support that through grants. We're anticipating really that one of two things is going to happen here. Either we're going to see cost increases or we're going to see reductions in grant. And at the moment, we have built into the plan an estimated £600,000 a year impact. We've actually phased it in over a 2-year period on the assumption that one of those two things will occur. Either costs will go up or Welsh Government support will go down. It's again a kind of bit of a worst case scenario there. It equates to losing all the Welsh Government funding effectively, the size of the number we've included. We've had no indication yet about what the outcome of that project will be, and certainly we've not had an indication that Welsh Government are going to withdraw funding, but we think there are significant risks around that, so we've built those costs in. In terms of other aspects of the budget, in terms of information technology, the Fire Authority approved a multiple-year programme of activities in ICT, particularly moving our Microsoft licensing arrangements to a new model from last financial year, and that continues into this next financial year. We've included investment to complete that project, and that was something that was signalled when the Fire Authority took the decision last year. It will include, because I know members often ask this, it will include things like moving from the Starleaf platform onto the Teams platform, which is part of the Microsoft solution. So members will be, some members will be happy to hear that, because I know there are regular questions about the continuity of Starleaf and some of the problems we get with members accessing it. Transport costs, we've largely flatlined this. There are some increases built into the budget. Whilst the cost of vehicles continues to go up, we are targeting the use of electric vehicles and the reduction of ongoing costs of vehicles. And we're also seeing, as you've heard earlier, some reductions in the cost of transport as we kind of cut vehicle movements for officers and appliances where possible. So we're hoping that's going to offset some of the cost increases. We're also looking wherever possible to move to cleaner vehicles as well. And there might be some acceleration in the capital programme along those lines to actually replace the older, dirtier diesel engines with kind of more modern diesel engines that are also a bit more efficient. In terms of capital financing, we're assuming a 4% increase in capital financing costs each year. That largely follows the funding of the capital programme. We've just discussed, obviously, the monitoring position on that. There's an assumption that continues into the future financial years as well. So those are the kind of key headlines within the report in terms of next year's budget. The whole of the MTFS is included as an appendix to the report, and members will be glad that I'm not going to talk you through every single page in that medium-term financial plan appendix. Obviously, you're free to look at that at your leisure. There's no decision here about the level of budget for next year. We're not asking members to agree to the figures for next year within this report. We will be coming back with future reports through the remainder of this financial year with a view to agreeing a draft budget in December. So that's when you'll kind of start to make decisions around the level of budget for next year. And obviously, we probably, I'm guessing, won't be setting our budget until into the new calendar year anyway. Well, I'm going to stop there, Chair, unless members have got any specific questions to ask.
Can I just say it's a very, very comprehensive report. There's a lot of uncertainties, a lot of unknowns, and whoever's done the report has done a tremendous job to try and balance it out. So we can give my regards to the staff over that. Anybody else got any questions for Chris? All gone quiet there.
Oh.
Well, sorry, yeah.
Yeah,
Val.
no, only a comment. No, like you, Chairman, I have read it, Chris. I have, and I found it it's interesting. It flabbergasts me. I found amazing in the medium-term financial strategy that of the 35,000 emergency calls, 17,000 incidents, of which a third are fires. These fires, 70% are deliberate. That absolutely astounded me. That is amazing. And then there's another cute little comment within the report somewhere. about the authority that the Welsh Government now has to, set the income tax level. I think that's a lovely little comment in there. So thank you, Chris, or whoever put it together. It's a bit going, but it's got a lot of information. So thank you, Chairman.
Chair, the numbers on fires, I must confess, are kind of average numbers that I pulled out from our statistics, and I'm sure Jason might want to comment on the detail of some of that. In terms of the Welsh Government's income tax raising powers, they've kind of signalled at the moment that they would be not using those powers to vary income tax, but obviously it remains there as an option for them should they wish to do so.
But it's Monday today. We've got a whole week to go.
Never say never. That's all you got to say.
Councillor White, is
David?
it?
Yeah, David.
Cheers, Chair. Thank you. I suppose being a union guy, I can't help but look at the pay. So do we have any idea what kind of pay rise is going to be offered this year? And, what would be the impact on that? Negotiations still going on. I know the local authorities hasn't been decided yet. So I just wonder where we update on the pay award. But also it says that the authority abides by the statutory minimum and living wage legislation. So does the authority, do you pay the minimum wage or the living wage? And is it across the board?
Chair, so when we set the budget last year, we anticipated, because of the COVID situation, that grey book staff, uniform staff, might see an increase of up to 2.75% in pay. The actual settlement has come through at 1.5%. So that's why there's that substantial saving in terms of the current year budget. And that goes to the heart of what I mentioned about a possible refund to the local authorities. We did include I believe it was a 2% pay award for Green Book staff, so support staff, and that one is still outstanding at the moment. It hasn't been settled. I believe the current offer on the table is 1 3/4. I think has been the latest position. But still not settled at the moment for the current year. In terms of next year, obviously we've got no indication at the moment what the ask and what the offer may be, which is why we come down to an average position that we put in. So we've assumed 1.5% across the board. It's really difficult at the moment because, as you've seen in the press, certain groups of staff see themselves as having a strong bargaining position because of the COVID crisis and all the work that they've been undertaking to support the country through this. And that's countered, of course, by the government saying, well, there's no money available to fund sort of larger pay increases because of the existing debt that's been racked up over the COVID period. And I noticed that the Chancellor was making statements recently, again, about the fact that kind of control of public finances is important to try and get that debt back down now. So you can imagine that that's going to go to the heart of pay offers as well.
So in regards to statutory minimum, you said the authority abides by the statutory minimum and living wage legislation. So do we pay the statutory minimum or the living wage?
We pay the living wage, and we're currently considering, I believe, the real living wage as a potential issue as well. So I think members will see discussion about that in the coming months.
Oh, that'd be good if you could move up to the real living wage. That'd be fantastic, All right, cheers. Thank you for that.
Okay, you all ready? Yeah. Any other comments for Chris?
Could I make another question, please, Chairman? On page 49, Chris, there's a reference there to grants that are made by various people, community safety, from Welsh Government, Gwent Police, Welsh Government. South Wales Police don't seem to make any contribution. Or do they make to Mid Wales Fire Authority?
No, they don't, Councillor Smith. The Gwent Police project is a specific piece of funding that we do around their work, but there is no general agreement with South Wales Police in terms of funding specific activities. We do, of course, work closely with South Wales Police. We've got the joint control based in their building, and we've got a number of co-location schemes, obviously, where we work closely with them, but no specific funding agreements, cross-funding agreements.
Right, okay, thank you.
Here we are. Any other questions before we go to the recommendations? No, everybody happy? Well, the recommendations that the FAPM committee note and approve the strategy as the basis for financial planning over the strategy period. Sarah, would you have to take any vote on that?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll take the vote now. So, Councillor Colbrand?
Yes, in favour.
Thank you. Councillor Spencer?
Agree.
Thank you. Councillor Drake?
Agreed.
Thank you. Councillor Evans?
Agreed.
Thank you. Councillor Hodgins has left the meeting. Councillor Hussey?
Agreed.
Thank you. Councillor Morgans?
Agree.
Thank you. Councillor Smith? Councillor Smith?
She's muted at the moment.
Sorry, agree. I was mute.
Thank you. And Councillor White?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Again, that was unanimous, Chair.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, everyone. If we then move on to item 8, it's the health checks of priority actions and Q1 progress against the statutory performance indicators. That's on page 59, and I think that's yours, Sarah.
Actually, Jason Evans is going to be presenting this paper on behalf of Dowie Rose. Apologies, Chair. I'll find out what's happened with your speakers list, and we'll make sure it's more accurate next time.
In the last week's by the look of it.
Possibly. I'll pass over to Jason now.
Okay, morning Chair, morning members. My name is Jason Evans, I'm the Head of Risk Reduction. So the purpose of just to run through this report quickly for information only is to provide you with a health check, I would suggest, in what's been quite an uncertain time for service delivery through COVID and into the second year of COVID almost. So the purpose of this paper is to give yourselves as members and our senior management team, I suppose, assurance on progress we're achieving towards the strategic themes, easy for me to say, I know, and performance against the performance indicators for the first quarter of this financial year, so from April to June. So as some of you will know, the Welsh Government requires us as a fire and rescue service and authority to develop strategic plans. Okay, so these show the direction for the service moving forward. And we develop strategic plans, implementing actions, and measuring these indicators to enable the service to achieve these organisational goals. So we have annual departmental plans and quarterly updates through our BMIS, our business management system, to provide assurance on the way through. What we also have to do is to report on some national strategic indicators, which this report gives some indication of how that moves forward. So we look again forward then on page 61, you'll see a list there of our 8 strategic themes, and each one of these strategic themes has one or more objectives that we work towards. So page 64 to page 88 gives more of a deep dive into each of these strategic themes. I probably won't cover each and every aspect of this. It's there for members to read through what their own sort of in their own time, really, I suppose. But happy to discuss in more depth. Just one, Councillor Smith. We mentioned deliberate fires and interest in deliberate fires, and it's obviously something that's very close to my heart as the Head of Risk Reduction. So I know on page 66 there, under 1.4, we've got some activity identified. That's not an exhaustive list there, but it's key. The reduction of deliberate fires is key in our communities across South Wales. And we can identify one in particular there, Operation Dam Sglaw, which is an all Wales multi-agency task force, if you like. So that's education, enforcement, across the whole of Wales, really, in which we play an active part. And the key to a lot of this activity is partnership work and how we tie in and engage with our partners to make the best situation we can. So, as we said, each of those strategic themes, and we have to report on strategic indicators. So, Appendix 1 of the report gives us an indication of the national strategic performance indicators that we report to Welsh Government. So 2.5 there, we'll see that out of the 8 indicators, 7 indicators, one is performed worse we've got in the report there, but it's a word to just keep in mind, and we'll discuss in more detail as we move forward, and the rest of the indicators there, the 6 indicators, are achieving their targets. So if we move forward to the appendix of the report, which starts on page 89, we can discuss each of the indicators in detail. So there's quite a significant narrative there on page 90 and 91, and I'll just touch upon a few points in the narrative there. So obviously, significant changes to our working practices through service delivery, maintaining the turnout implications to operational incidents, but also amending and revising and modifying our risk reduction activities to make sure we are still driving down risk, maintaining that risk reduction element. Quite a different approach, I suppose, to the home safety check element of home safety. Whereas we've been, pre-COVID, we were visiting properties, carrying out enhanced home safety checks across the vast majority of our community authority areas. COVID pushed us into a different approach. I would suggest a scaled approach, if you like, to home safety. So we modified our processes. It was evident that households didn't want us to cross their thresholds a lot of the time, so we needed a modified approach. And we see in the second paragraph there a lot of telephone advice given to properties of lower risk, some electronic advice given over our internet and website, but also making sure that our higher risk members of our community were catered for also. So delivering equipment to doorsteps with appropriate literature and guidance, or for higher risk individuals, practitioners attending sites and completing those more complex checks. What we needed to do as a community safety department through COVID was, redirect a lot of our members of staff, and we showed some great flexibility across the department, really, in redirecting our youth and education staff who weren't required at school venues, obviously, into more of our home safety. And this allowed us to carry out over 1,700 home safety checks in the Q1 of this service year. We see that tap opening up again, if you like, now, where operational crews are addressing the elements of home safety for us now moving forward. Education, opening back up crucial crews. You'll see Phoenix programs over a 9-week period from March 21. The virtual message delivered to 242 schools. So you'll see a modified approach. So appliances and crews not attending school visits, but doing those virtually, very much as we've amended the way we do meetings, etc. And you'll notice there in the second paragraph down on page 91, the return of the fire cadets. Now the report was compiled in August. I'd just like to confirm that our fire cadets did start back at the beginning of September, which is a real positive for the youth who, to be honest, have had it very difficult through the COVID period, and it's really important and imperative that we re-engage with our youth. So all our cadet branches are up and running now, all COVID secure. We are imploring our fire cadets to be part of the vaccination programme now moving forward, which was something we agreed at our critical incident team last week, as and where they can. Moving on to our business fire safety, lockdown has been particularly challenging through healthcare and hospital activity, hospital premises. Members from previous reports that we were very influential in the setup and the development of the field hospital sites right across the South Wales area, providing advice to our partners, but ensuring the safety of staff and patients there. But what was evident is we were unable to attend a lot of healthcare facilities because of the risk of the spread of COVID. So a lot of our audits were done on a desktop basis using technology to assist. So we're now moving back to be a part of the vaccination programme to providing face-to-face audits and visits now as well. There's been lots of changes to the types of incidents, and notable differences you see towards the bottom of page 91 there is a noticeable difference to the type of incidents that the service has attended, and an increase in assisting other agencies. Now, we know through COVID other agencies are under considerable pressure, WAST in particular, South Wales and Gwent Police also, and there are a significant increase in the number of special service calls we do to assist our other services. And as we move forward through the stats, you'll notice that is an area that we've identified as not achieving our target, if you like, of driving down those incidents. But I would argue, and I just wanted to give members a sort of reassurance that even though there's a significant number of additional incidents where we as a service are assisting other agencies, I would argue that that's the right thing for us to do through a very difficult period. And perhaps we shouldn't take that as a negative, but more of a positive, where we've decided as a service to do the right thing. And you know, our rep bodies and our unions have been linked in with and have provided a real positive discussion forum and making sure that it's safe for our crews, but also that we're enhancing our service. So if we look at the third paragraph up, we'll see a noticeable difference. Assistance to other agencies has increased from 71 incidents last year to 133 incidents this year, an increase of 87%. So quite an alarming figure, but I'm sure you'll agree with me that it can be sort of interpreted by us as a more positive rather than a negative increase in stats, shall we say. If we move forward to page 93, you'll see a sunburst, we call it, an extract from our BMIS system, which shows that we are performing well in all aspects, all the reportables. So total RTCs attended, percentage of dwelling fires confirmed to room of origin, total fires, total false alarms attended, total accidental deaths and injuries in fires, and total accidental deaths and injuries and total deaths and injuries, all showing a downward trend. And the very one there at the bottom of the sunburst, which is highlighted in red, is the one we just talked about, where we are providing assistance as a service to our partner organisations. So you know, it's quite a positive read, I would suggest. Some areas that we still and will you know, keep on working towards. The subsequent pages from 94 on there give us an indication of those that we've just talked about. You'll see the blue graphs there. We've got an annual total on the first 5 columns there, and then we've got a first quarter total in the right-hand 6th column over for each of those aspects. And then we move on from page 98 onwards, gives you a more in-depth breakdown and brief, if you like, in your unitary authority areas, so you can have a ponder, you know, in your own time, looking more specifically at your area. So no one didn't go through every single stat. It's in my view, as error risk reduction, it's a positive statistical report in a very challenging period of time, and the very one that we are showing red on, if you like, is something that perhaps we should and have been doing the right thing to help the communities and our other partners through a difficult period. Okay, happy to answer any questions now, Chair and members, on any aspect really.
The information in our report is excellent. It's very in depth. There's a lot of information for us to take. I have got some questions, but I'm going to let others go first. Anybody? Val, did you want to come first?
Yes, please, Chairman. No, I think it's a good report. It's very interesting, and it does show the services are operating in a more joined up way, aren't they? The better service to serve the public. In the report, Chairman, there's a reference there to the speed initiative and the pushing forward of 20-mile-an-hour areas. That initiative originally sort of came in ask from residents there driving forward. There's a reference in the report, this part of, on water safety and our greater involvement in that. And I have raised a question with the Chief as to whether the authority is actually consulted on planning applications regarding water safety. I'm particularly concerned about 2 applications that relate to the Llandegffordd Reservoir, which you will know well. the extension of licensing, well, of activities until 12 o'clock at night. And I personally am a little perturbed about that, and I would like to feel, and I will chase up with my authority, that the fire authority is being consulted, because licensed premises along big deep pools of water I don't think are a very good proposal, but still. Also, looking in the statistics, Monmouth and another authority, can't remember, Monmouth, much higher extrication numbers, a considerable increase. And I wondered if those accidents were occurring in any particular locality. That's a bit mean to ask a question as specific as that now, but we're seeing a large increase in extrication from vehicles after accidents, and whether it's related to any particular locality, I would be interested to know. So thank you, Chairman, and thank you for the report, officers.
Anybody want to take a bow?
Yeah, just one on Councillor Smith, just to respond there. One on water safety is a very interesting one. Obviously, we've got a statutory duty for rescue from water, but the preventative activity is something we do over and above. And I know we're attending a very sad coroner's court later this month. One of my officers, the head of water safety, Manager Brendan Jones, will be attending on behalf of the service, because the coroners now are asking some significant questioning around water-related deaths and injuries. And I think it's important that the coroner understands what remit we have as a service and as an authority, but also what remit we don't have. So our statutory duty goes so far, but we, in my opinion, and I'm sure the coroner will agree with us, go far in advance of our statutory duty with our preventative activities. And we're embedded within Water Safety Wales to ensure that all the PSBs, if you like, are bought into all the water safety aspects. Predominantly, however, the local authority who control the water safety aspects around water courses, and I also think it's an opportunity for us as partners to work together through the PSBs. An interesting one around the planning there, Councillor Smith. That we're not consulted, but we would readily offer an opinion on that type of ask, I suppose, if we were consulted. So I hope that answers the question around water safety. It's an area it's an area we're developing, and what we're doing at the moment within community safety is our road traffic collision practitioners are now being upskilled as water safety practitioners. So whilst each station has its own community risk management plan, which is driven by the local station commander, dependent upon the local risk, it's important that we give them a central support mechanism, specifically around water safety, because we've had a number of high-profile, unfortunately, high-profile, really sad occurrences over the last 2 years, I would suggest. I'm from Aberdeen, and we've had one in the Mountain Ash area fairly recently, which has caused a huge ripple. But it's important that we offer central support, to each individual commander and have that element going across. So we've instigated that, and we're developing moving forward in what can be devastating for the community. With regards to RTCs in Monmouth, I don't have specifics around that area, unfortunately. I can find out for you. But what I would say is that we have seen an increase in road traffic collisions as lockdowns were eased, if you like. So initially, our statistics have been indifferent, shall we say, through the different periods of lockdowns and the movement between each local authority. So we've seen reductions in certain areas, but we've seen increases in areas that we were quite surprised at. For instance, RTCs went down at the start of lockdown, and very sadly, the instances of domestic violence and the assistance we've had to offer up to victims through our support mechanisms has gone up exponentially, because of I'm assuming from discussions with police colleagues, because of the way that individuals are almost housed together continuously for longer periods of time. Yeah. But back onto the subject of RTCs, we did see an increase across a lot of our UA areas when lockdown was eased and the traffic flow on the roads increased again.
The speed of the traffic has certainly increased, and in the rural areas, personal observations. I think a blooming racetrack in places. But no, thank you very much for your comments, and I'll pursue the water one because I don't think pubs alongside reservoirs are a good idea.
Anybody else got any questions for Jason? No, quiet. I got 4. The first one, there has been, well, I have been in collaboration with yourself, working with the home safety team. Because I've been running a food bank, we've been giving out a lot of leaflets which you supplied, and I made sure they went out through the distribution in Torvine. That's the first one. I'm also on the second question is I am liaising with the community team, as you know, Jason. Trying to get home safety visits back up and running, and I'm advertising now within Torvine. The third one, with all the local authority performance indicators, could they send them out to every member so they can distribute it between their networks for other members on the council? And on the fourth one, with the schools, particularly the areas with large grass fires, can we get that panto thing up and running to put into the schools, particularly in Torvine? I'd like to see it because of the grass fire incidents. And there's 4 to give you a go.
Okay, yeah, no, I fully agree, and I'm really thankful, Chair, with your support with the food banks and for the support of all members as well. You know, it's interesting. We've had discussions about how we can reach out to every member of the community, and I suppose specifically through COVID, it's been very easy for us to resort to electronic, internet-based. Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, whatever you decide to, whatever your preference is, if you like, for us to throw out information. But I think, I know that my community safety teams have been in direct contact with the Elderly Persons Commissioner for Wales, you know, to talk about the digital exclusion. So it's interesting that we need to make sure that the way we communicate gets right across to our more vulnerable individuals. And unfortunately, last calendar year, we had 10 fire deaths in the South Wales area. We've looked really deeply into these 10 fire deaths, you know, and 7 of those, I believe, were accidental, 3 were deliberate, suicides, unfortunately. But we've looked at ways or the demographics of those individuals and how we could, as partner organisations, communicate more effectively. But Councillor, Chair, you know, your initiative there with the food bank is one that's been really successful. So because the food bank situation increased through COVID, you know, it gave us the opportunity to put literature, if you like, and communicate and assist and offer out our services to the more vulnerable. And that's something that's been pushed out on an all Wales basis now, you know, from that small seed that we discussed and you suggested, and it's opened right out across Wales. But it's still a number of fire deaths, you know, which is really concerning us. And I know that the chief discussed it in a G10 in the Gwent area a number of weeks ago, and giving it, you know, showing that data, sharing information, and it's something that our local group managers now in the unity authorities are taking to the public service boards to discuss that partnership involvement right the way through, you know, and what people see when they enter into vulnerable people's homes, that they push back to us as a fire and rescue service to be able to assist. I think if we go on to the information, if you've got our statistics at your fingertips as UAE councillors, you know, would be a lot. It's a lot easier for you to be able to share. So Sarah's agreed here. She just gave me the nod across the room, you know, that we'll share that information across. And with regards to the pantomime, oh yes, I will. I'll try and ensure that we get our pantomime out. Yes, it's a very successful initiative, and you know, it picks out the grass fire initiatives in our more affected areas. But obviously, we were curtailed somewhat via COVID. We did look at turning it into a video format, but that didn't quite work this time around. But I know we're working towards reintroducing it now with COVID security, if you like, in and around the school areas. And it is our more benefit to try and get us back into face-to-face, safe face-to-face delivery now. So I'll look into that for you, Chair. Thank you.
I just think it's ideal because it will catch an intervention at an earlier age. I think it's very vitally important we do that, particularly the younger generation. That's great.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, can I come in quickly, Chair, please?
Yeah, come on.
I would just like to know, sorry, just what is a malicious?
Action.
Malicious. Well, sorry, Councillor Spencer, we lost you then. Were you asking what a malicious false alarm was?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Yeah, a malicious false alarm, Councillor Spencer, is when someone has willfully caused the fire service, either phoned the fire service and phoned in a fictitious call, or has maliciously operated a call point, shall we say, the red call points around automatic fire alarms. That's known as a malicious false alarm then. So there's an intent in how, malicious intent in how that individual has called the fire and rescue service. And some of our initiatives within our JPSC now, within our control room, has driven down the number of malicious false alarm calls that we get. You can imagine the resource implication, the danger to crews and members of the public, when our big red fire engines are travelling at speed to fictitious incident is a travesty, to be honest, and we're managing to drive down those occurrences, although they still do occur, because some calls to our control room are very convincing, unfortunately, for the wrong reasons. But we do try and drive down those as best we can.
Okay, thank you very much.
Excellent. Yeah. Any other?
Can I get? Sorry, Chairman, can I come back again? A number of things. Something that's just gone through my mind, that somewhere within the papers that I've read here, within this pack, there was something that about wearing cameras or security cameras that we were going to discontinue or whatever. I couldn't quite understand that, but other folks might. So it was a security one there. But the other thing was to say thank you for the abbreviations list at the back of this report. We've just looked at that. And also, some years ago, a group of teenagers with the fire authority produced a very good compact disc thing, little play about fire, playing with refuse bins and setting fire and the results of that. And I think it's worth recirculating if we've still got it there in the store. But coming back, I can't remember the issue with the cameras, because I thought that our staff were now wearing sort of cameras on them when they actually worked. That thought came from the malicious calls that the other member has just raised. Anyway, sorry, bit of a mess. The CD was a very good one, and thank you for the abbreviations.
Thanks, Councillor. Just a quick one back from the body cam situation was a trial that we trialled at one time, and it was a considerable impact, to be honest, around data capture, data storage. What we have got is obviously appliance CCTV, which records in and around all the fire appliance, the fire engine. We've also got access to drones now, which are utilised for preventative activity and enforcement activity in partnership with Gwent and South Wales Police. But we do use body cameras for training events. So where we're in a controlled environment and as a learning tool, our incident command team use body cameras to record decision rationale at incidents, and as a training tool for our staff, and that's been a very successful initiative.
Thank you.
And I'll look into the CD aspect and see where we can go with that one.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions now for Jason? Like I said, it's a very, very good report. There's a lot of information in there. So commend to the staff for putting it all together.
Stephen.
David, yeah.
I know you've done a lot of work down in the Kenvergill area regarding domestic abuse. Is that returning yet, or has it returned?
Yeah, we carry out that 24/7, Councillor. We've got an on-call function within our community safety teams that are on call through referrals from partner agencies to protect properties that are at risk from fire. So if there's come threat from an abusive partner, the victim and family, shall we say, who would be left in that property, are assisted by our fire crime staff. on a 24/7 basis, so they attend. What we've also got is what we call a momentum program, and it is mentioned in some of the narrative there. And the momentum program is a real positive, proactive program, which is funded by grants from Welsh Government, which allows us to link in with a lot of the refugees around domestic violence across the different UAs. And we run a 8-week program then with the survivors and families to build up their esteem, to use our firefighters and our community safety staff to almost give them a more positive male impact, if you like, because predominantly these issues are male instigated, and the children, if you like, and the victims sometimes have had very challenging experiences from some male, what should have been male role models. So we utilise our staff, to work with the children and with the which predominantly are female victims, to build up their esteem, and we see some very positive results. In fact, we've got some have progressed through to our volunteer schemes, some of the children have come through to our fire cadet schemes. So it's a real positive, and you see some of the faces, and some of the comments made by individuals. You can just see them developing, if you like, and coming out to themselves as the weeks go on. So something that has been on hold for a couple of months because of COVID, but we're looking at a slightly revised version now to make sure it's COVID secure, but that'll be coming back online in a month or two's time, I'm looking at.
I do you can indulge me a minute. Like, I work in Swansea Social Services, and I work a lot with domestic abuse, victims of domestic abuse. Do you know if it's an all Wales thing? Is it just something that the South Wales Authority just tried to do it?
It is an all Wales initiative. However, North Wales Fire and Rescue Service don't run any momentum programmes. We run programmes in South Wales, and there's also one programme run on an annual basis in Mid and West. So predominantly South Wales are the leaders on it, but Mid and West also run a programme also. So Swansea would come under the Mid and West Service programme, obviously.
Okay, well, cheers. And like you say, it's a fantastic role you do. Not just, before I came into the fire authority, I thought you just fire rescue and rescue people from cars. And it's been really enlightening over the last few years, the amount of work you do that I never knew you do. And it's amazing, the work you do, like in preventative work. And so keep doing what you're doing, because whatever you're doing it right.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Chair.
I think Councillor Morgan is indicating.
Yeah, I've just seen that hand up.
Thank you, and thank you for the report. It's such a good report, and it's good to see the figures for RCT are greatly improved in a lot of areas. My concern is the RTCs. I'm wondering, is there any particular area we're having these problem, these accidents?
I'm not aware exactly, Councillor Morgan's, of where in the RCT area. What I do know is that we work closely with local authority and highways to work together with the statistics to shape the infrastructure of the roadways, if you like, if that is the issue. So we've got a number of different ways in which we tax them, I guess, if that's the right word. So there's the road infrastructure, the signage, the potential installation of speed bumps or cameras, etc. So we work with the local authorities and South Wales Police around that. But obviously there's our educational initiatives there, and you see the different the options programs around seatbelts, mobile phone usage, and also the 30-20, and so there's a different way we approach things, really, to try and get an outcome that we look. But I agree with you, statistics are the key to this, and that's what drives drives improvement for us right across the board, whether that's in RTC or in anything else, really,
Yeah, thank you. And there's been a lot of problem with speeding, and I'm just wondering if there's certain areas that it's proved that we've had the accidents in those areas. But thank you very much, and thank you, very, very good report, and thank you for all you do.
Okay, that for the Treasury report. No mind.
And anybody else now before we move on? It's only a report for information in it, Sarah. So
yes, report for information, Chair.
As long as everybody's happy with that, and there's nobody, not happy with it. So everybody's happy with the report?
Yeah.
Nobody against?
Yes.
Or nobody abstaining? No?
Yeah, happy.
Happy.
Excellent, so We'll move on to the next one, item 9 then, which is the 2021 Annual Treasury Management Review. I got Lisa, but I didn't know. I'm just guessing now.
It is me. Sorry.
Oh, I got one right on the, 2 on the tick list.
You got me right 3 times, Chair. Thank you. Okay, so this report is the Annual Treasury Management Review. This report is basically about compliance. It's the third report in 3 statutory Treasury reports that have to go to Fire Authority each year. This report considers the Treasury management activities for the year ending the 31st of March 2021 and compares this to the strategy that was set for the year, and it's generally that's done about January to March at the beginning of each year. So the initial report is about strategy. We have an update report taken to members by the December each year, and this is the outturn or review report that's got to be done and delivered to members by the 30th of September each year. Members may be aware that Treasury management activities are things like managing our cash resources, so banking, borrowing, investing, managing our deposits, things like that. And it's an important aspect of the work of finance. And it attempts to manage budget impacts on the revenue budget by making sure that our interest costs are reasonable, and where we can make some income from investments, but also making sure that we've got money available when we need it. So it's got this concept of solvency attached to it, being able to pay our bills when they fall due. So that's what Treasury management really means to us. So this report is required to be presented to full authority as soon after the close of the financial year is practicable, or by the 30th of September at the latest. So it tells members about how we did for the year that's just closed. Just some interesting stats there. Our current average debt book rate is 3.8% interest. So that's quite cheap and is a little lower than what we had last year at 4.37. And the main reason for the drop in our average interest rate on our debt book is because last year we paid a big chunk of debt off, 2.4 million of loans. And the older loans are tending to carry a higher interest rate against them. So the one we paid off for 2 million, it actually had a rate of 4.18%. Now, we did take out new borrowing last year of 5 million. We took 3 loans out, 2 for 2 million, 1 for 1 million, and their rates of interest are very low in comparison to that 4.18. At 1.27, 1.02 and 1.32. So you can see how much the interest rates and how cheap borrowing has become. And COVID again has had an impact on borrowing rates. Banking rate is still at 0.1%. And with our current banking providers, which is Lloyds, they're our main banking provider, our interest rate is 0.1. minus bank rate, which is 0.1. So we are currently getting, once we've got cheap borrowing, we're currently getting nothing back our cash deposits in bank held anyway. So it's a good news story for minimising your interest costs, but not so great if you've got lots of cash and you need to invest. So I'll just take you through the report. It talks about capital expenditure. So, as members will be aware, we have to borrow to fund our capital investment because we don't get any capital settlement to help us with that. It's all unsupported. So, it's generally the funding of our capital budget is through borrowing, small contribution from revenue budget, how much we can afford. We tend to use any capital receipts we've got to offset against borrowing, and we get some grants in. As you're aware, we've got some grant funding for the USA Centre of Excellence, which that we spoke of earlier. The report also looks at our borrowing and make sure that we're not in an over-borrowed position. So a key indicator for members is to see that you know what our capital budget is and our intentions in terms of capital investment. That tends to set the indicator for us for prudential borrowing, and then we should pit that against actual borrowing. So we've got a ceiling at which we wouldn't be going over and above, and if we do, it indicates that we've got a solvency issue there. But that indicator wasn't reached during the year, so it's a good news story. Authorised limit for the year was 50,000. That was more than enough, and our operational boundary at 45,000. Just for information, our end of year borrowing position was 29 million. So you can see we were well below those two limits. And you've got a breakdown there of maturity, when our borrowing is maturing within certain time frames. The report goes on to talk about the borrowing that we did take out in the year, the 5 million. We've just covered that. That's the first time in 6 years we've taken out interest-bearing borrowing. We did, of course, have the Investor Save money from Welsh Government of 3 million to fund our joint control project. All that's been paid back. And we've had a smaller element of interest refunding from SALEX for green initiatives like the movement centre lighting, boiler management systems on stations, things like that. At year end, for information, we held 3.2 million in the bank, albeit throughout the year our average balance was £6.2 million at the end of each month at the bank. So we imagine our money well, making sure that we could pay our pensioners when they were retiring and our bills when they fell due. The report goes on to talk a little bit about the interest rate environment. It's still very low. When we did this report, we expected it to go up. That didn't happen. And the recommendation for this report is that the committee notes the information in it and approves the actual prudential and Treasury indicators set therein. Happy to take any questions.
Anybody got a question, Surya?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to come in, yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Morgan, you need to be on mute.
Yeah. Get your question across better that way.
Can I ask on page 114, the average monthly end balances, if these are the statements, should they be recorded from 2020 to 21, not 21 to 22?
Ah, yes, you are right.
Oh, well done.
Good spotting.
Yay.
That was a test.
Being an ex-bank, pick up on things like this. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Well, it's just nice to know we made 2,000 in interest, isn't it, on all that?
That is significantly lower than previous years. You can see there that generally we're around £80,000 mark, but you know, we'd rather not have the excess cash there than and just use the cash surpluses that we've got to fund our capital investment. That's been the prudent strategy for us.
Yeah, grateful for what we've got.
Yes.
Myself, I just think the loans we've taken out, we've done prudential borrowing because the interest rates are very, very low. And I think
very low. Yeah.
Prudence. Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm happy with that. Anybody else got any questions or?
No.
The recommendation is the fire and rescue. Well, we note this. The actual prudential and Treasury indicators set that in. So everybody happy to note that?
Yes.
Everybody not happy?
Happy to note it.
Yeah, good. So we'll note that then.
Thank you. Oh, this is where the abbreviations came, sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So if we move on to item 10, which is the Audit Wales Finance Audit Letter, which is page 119.
Yeah.
Anybody want to talk us through that one?
I'll take this one, Chair. Give everyone else a break.
I know I got your name on it. I was going to check.
Yeah. I thought Chris was going to fight me for it then.
Yeah, this is just the conclusion of the statement of accounts process. Members will remember that they approved the annual statement of accounts back in July, and at that meeting the external auditors presented their report and recommendations, and this letter now just shows that after that the actual accounts went off for signing by the Auditor General for Wales, and everything's been concluded to a satisfactory end. So it's just the formal conclusion to the entire process. So it's there for members' information.
Yeah, just for members' information, Gillian from Audit Wales did try to log on to the meeting this morning, but there were IT problems, so she couldn't get on the call. So she's passed on her apologies. There was nothing specific that she wanted to raise on the external audit issues.
Yeah, well, the only thing reading the report, I thought it was very, very negative regarding the service.
Chair, I'll come on to that one. That's the next agenda item.
Yeah, but like I say, unfortunately, they couldn't turn up to you know, voice out concerns. That's what I wanted to read.
Yeah.
So we'll raise that at the next Fire Authority meeting.
Sure. Shall I cover that report off now, Chair? Just briefly.
Yeah.
So the report on page 121 is the Corporate Resilience Report. It's an Audit Wales report. But as the Chair rightly said, unfortunately, they're not here to present the report. They will, however, be attending the Fire Authority next Monday. This report has been put on the agenda for next Monday as well, because some of the content of the report and some of the points that they raise talk about the governance of the fire service and the Fire Authority. So we thought it right and proper that it comes to this committee as it would normally, but then goes to the full authority for all members to have a chance to comment. It's a report that they've done across the 3 fire and rescue services in Wales. So they've looked at corporate resilience for the 3 of us. They're looking at the sort of resilience over the medium-term plan, so the next 5 years onwards for the services. And they're looking at areas around finance, governance, workforce, assets, collaboration, and overall business continuity plans. They do pick up on a lot of positive aspects within the report, but as we noted when the report first came in, the tone of the report we felt didn't necessarily reflect the positive elements as highly as they should have, and perhaps focused more on the negative elements. So it was a bit disappointing that we did make some feedback on the initial draft. They took on board some of our comments, but unfortunately a lot of them remained as the report is finally published now. Like I say, they're not here to actually comment on the content, but they will be next week. So that'll be the opportunity for members to question the auditors next week. Then when they will be there to present.
Oh, thanks for that, Karen. Yeah, and I think we should, because I was genuinely happy with some of the content that was in there. When we're doing our best with what we've got and collaborating, you can't assess us if we're doing our job over the other fire authorities. If they're not doing theirs, this is an overall picture of the 3. It doesn't reflect us on our own, I don't know if anybody else got any comments they'd like to say?
I think I've felt for some time, Chairman, that there's a terrific number of bodies the service is supposed to be working constructively with, and it's not the service's fault. I think there's a need for government totally to look back and look at a clearer and more concise way forward. Come along, what were the local service boards? The authority being required to work with 10 and 9. Now we have a different sort of system. There is a huge amount of organisation, and I just think it would be good to be able to stand back and think, and it's Welsh Government needs to stand back and look at what it's actually doing and requiring of working together. So every sympathy with people.
Yeah.
But it's a very good report.
There's a good example there where they talk about the cost of us attending public service boards.
Yes.
And we criticised for the level of cost of the senior officers attending these meetings, but unfortunately, we're a statutory partner. We have a statutory duty to comply and attend the meetings. So it's a cost that we've just got to bear. So I think it's a bit unfair to be criticised for it then.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah. There's a reason, there's a need to sit back and look at it clearly and get themselves sorted out. Thank you, Chairman.
Statutory obligation, and which we're carrying it out, and then criticising us for doing the way we do it. So,
there was a very nice paragraph about the standard of the reports going up, so that was good. But no, it's easy to criticise, isn't it? I do too much of that. Thanks, Chairman.
Yeah. Anybody else like to comment? They've read it? Is there anything else to put in? There will be an attendance for next week's meeting. So if you think of anything or you want to ask a specific question, by all means, do it on the day. You happy with that, Geraint?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. As I say, it's the opportunity for members to scrutinise the auditors.
Yeah. Make a change rather than reverse, wouldn't it?
Perhaps, Chairman, we can come through with our own version as how it should all be done.
We'll probably be on the naughty step the one after, but don't worry. Everybody happy to note that
Yes, I'm happy to note it.
Yeah. Nobody's not happy with it. Well, I'm not happy with it, but we'll agree that next week.
Yeah, we can all reread it, Chairman. That would be really nice.
Thankfully, Chair, the internal audit reports coming up next are far more positive.
Hopefully, we get a positive answers. Right, if we move on to item 11, the Corporate Resilience Report, South Wales Fire and Rescue Authority. I got your name down again. Is that yours?
That's the one we just covered, Chair. Yeah. So.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. That was yours, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So we've done that. Now we're on to.
So we're on the internal audit report, where somebody's been waiting a long time, all the way through the meeting, to give it from TIA.
Hello. So we have two reports that we've issued as final since the last meeting. The first of those is on page 144 of your pack, and that relates to payment cards. We looked there at the arrangements for control of payment cards, how you authorise the payments, how you assign cards, how you make sure that the expenditure is supported with receipts. That had substantial assurance, and the points that we raised, there were three low priority recommendations, and they really related to tidying up the policy which needed to be updated. So unless there are any other questions on that report, I didn't propose to say anything else. It's a very positive report.
No, that's excellent. Thanks. If you want to go on to the next one, unless anybody has got any other questions?
No.
We'll move on to the next one. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, the next one, if you turn to page 150 of the pack, this is the performance management one, and this is even better. This is again a substantial assurance report, and we had no recommendations, just an operational effectiveness matter, which is effectively a suggestion as to sort of like how you could potentially improve your systems. So that's an excellent report. You've maintained the sort of standard that we saw when we last looked at this area. So again, unless there's anything that you want me to answer, I wasn't going to say any more on that one.
All I would say is just that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, and it reflects in our progress.
It does.
In other audits. Any other questions?
No.
No.
Okay. And then the final report that we have is our progress report. On page 154, we've just reported on a survey that we did with our clients about their intentions to return to work. And this one just highlighted that they're looking at, that the majority of our clients are looking for a mixture of virtual and remote meetings going forward. So that's just really to explain how we expect to be working. Having said that, whatever you want us to do, we'll do. So if you want us on site for all the audits that we do, we'll be on site for the audits. And we are doing that across the client base now. As long as we've had a risk assessment, we're going back and undertaking audits on site. So we're just working with the clients to find out what best suits them at the moment. Moving on to the next page, page 155, we include in our report root cause indicators, and those are, when we look at our audits, we try and sort of work out where the recommendations are coming from, whether there's a common theme behind them. And you'll notice that for the 3 recommendations that we raised in the reports that you've had today, all of those fell under the governance framework heading. And basically that's because they all relate to procedures, policies and procedures. So that's just to give you an idea of the source of the recommendations. If you'd had more reports or more recommendations, there may have been a different spread. And then moving down to page 158, this is our progress against the plan for the year. So as well as the 2 reports that we've had on the agenda today, there are 2 other reports which are currently in draft, which are the strategic planning and the safeguarding reports. And we're also finalising the core HR report that was undertaken. So that should be issued shortly. All the other audits have been planned. There's one change to the plan, and you can see at the bottom of the page, just above the green line, annual planning, we've included a death in service audit, and that's following discussions with management. An APM has been issued for that, which is our audit scope for discussion. It replaces the Brexit audit that we were going to do, and it's just looking at the arrangements for your death in service arrangements in terms of how you add joiners, how you take off leavers, how you make sure that the payments are processed correctly and how it's reported. So we haven't agreed a date for that as yet, but that's just to draw that to your attention. I had nothing else to say on the progress report, so I don't know if there are any questions.
I haven't. Anybody else got any questions for Helen?
No, I like the reports because I like the colours, Chairman.
Yeah, and I like the wiper setup.
Yes.
No, I just think it just shows that the due diligence of the staff working South Wales Fire and Rescue.
Yeah,
you know,
they're really positive reports.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and that's a good reflection on us, and it's a good reflection on yourself. So thank you.
Yes,
thank you.
So definitely no questions before I move on to the next item. No, I think you got away with that quite good, Helen. If Steve was here, he wouldn't. Move on to item 13. That's a forward work program. I know everybody's probably read it. Anybody want to elaborate on any of it, or is it just for reading?
It's just the standard forward work program, Chair. Yeah, there's obviously the agenda items on today's meeting, and then the ones scheduled for the remainder of the municipal year. No, nothing at this point in terms of changes that we propose. So, as it stands, really.
There we are. Anybody want to raise anything on the forward work program? I don't think so. I think it's pretty straightforward. Item 14, consider any business of the chairperson deems urgent. I've got nothing. So I think that's the end of the meeting, unless anything needs to be raised by anybody. No?
No.
No.